Welcome viewers, you're with me Dr. Surbhi Unyal and I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Friends, in this lecture we are discussing or we will be discussing what is the relationship between art and morality in aesthetics. So, the philosophical debate on art and morality within aesthetics, it revolves around several core questions that we had discussed in the last lecture, which is that can and should art be judged based on moral considerations, and can art be morally problematic yet aesthetically valuable. Another important question is, should the moral character or intention of the artist impact our judgment of their work? So, if we say that, let's say, and there is an artist whose moral character is not up to the mark, or there is some problem in his moral character, that the person is not moral enough, or there are some problems with his intentions. So, should his moral character or intentions impact our judgment of the work of art that they have produced? So, let us say if there is a painter and if that painter has a morally problematic character, so should that impact our judgment of his painting? The another question is, do the potential effects of the artwork on the audience have any bearing on its aesthetic evaluation? That means, let's say if there is a movie or a drama, what effects it can have, or what consequences, or what way is it communicating with the audience, or in the sense of drawing the audience to some particular action or a behavior? Should that have any bearing on the aesthetic evaluation of that work of art? So, in order to answer these questions, we have again various positions who would take up different stance onto this debate. So, the two opposing views, the major ones regarding the relationship between art and morality are: first is that art as autonomous. According to this view, art is autonomous and free from any moral rules and obligations. It states that art should be judged purely on aesthetic without any moral considerations. From this viewpoint, the aesthetic value of a work of art is independent of its creator's moral character or the moral implications the work may carry. And the popular slogan that summarizes this perspective is art for art's sake. So, as per this position goes, it says that art is autonomous in itself, in the sense that it is free from any moral rules and any moral obligations. And in doing that, it states that art should be judged purely on aesthetic criteria. So, when we are judging a piece of art, we should judge it purely on the aesthetic criteria. we should not bring in the moral considerations into art. And when we say moral consideration, what do we mean? We mean to say that we should not look for whether the aesthetic value of the work of art is, whether it is independent of the creator's moral character. So, the creator's moral character should not determine whether the work of art is aesthetically valuable or not. Also, we should not take into consideration the moral implications of the work of art that it may carry. Fine. So, it should be valued, it should be evaluated, it should be appreciated only for its own sake. And therefore, we say that art for art's sake, nothing else. We should not bring in other aspects, whether it is morally valuable, whether it has any social context, and so on. The other perspective is moralism or morality in art. It emphasizes that art should be in the service of morality and believes that art is the strongest tool that propagates moral values. So, the moral considerations are integral to the evaluation of art. This view suggests that artwork can be morally objectionable and that such moral defects can diminish their aesthetic value. An extreme form of moralism could argue that art has a duty to promote moral values. What does it mean? Here it means that if an art is in some sense immoral or showing immoral content and propagating immoral values, in that sense it wouldn't be considered, it should not be in fact considered as aesthetically valuable, because because being morally objectionable, it diminishes its aesthetic values. So, it emphasizes that art should be in the service of morality and believes that art is the strongest tool that propagates moral values. And you might have yourself experienced that how well does a film or any drama or any song or any novel communicates with the audience, and the kind of moral values that it propagates and the kind of impact it has on the observers. So, it becomes an integral part of the evaluation of art, and this view therefore suggests that artwork can be morally objectionable and that such moral defect can diminish their aesthetic value. And this extreme moralism could argue that art has a duty to promote moral values. So, we often feel it is our responsibility to censor art so that it is kept under moral checks and does not destroy the moral character of the society. That is the reason why we have a censor board. Fine, and you might have come across that there are certain movies which have to go through the censor board because they are not complying to the moral standards or have some social, political or religious problem into it. Now, coming to one of the major criticisms of art that came from Plato. So, Plato's core criticism of art stems from his theory of forms or ideas, which posits that physical world is merely a shadow of more real, unchanging spiritual world of forms or ideas. And according to Plato, art is twice removed from reality. So, if we try to elongate the question of art and morality, it is very important to talk about Plato. As I just mentioned, Plato was the major criticism of art. Why so? Because his, and if you see the criticism that he is proposing here in the case of art, comes from his theory of forms or ideas. And in that, he posits that the physical world is merely a shadow of the more real, of the more unchanging spiritual world of forms or ideas. And according to Plato, art is therefore twice removed from the reality. Why? Because if we look at this world is basically the image of, or the shadow, as he is saying, shadow of the ultimate or the perfect unchanging spiritual world of forms or ideas. And this world is just an image or the shadow of it. And then art is again the representation of that world or the image of this world. So, if this world in itself is an image of the idea of forms or the supreme, then art being the image or being the shadow of the shadow or image of the image, it is twice removed from the reality. And therefore, Plato was quite critical of art. So, he says that an artist creating a representation, like let us say a painting of a tree, that is an imitation of a physical object which is an actual tree. But this actual tree is again the imitation of the forms or the form of a tree, the ideal essence of all trees. Thus, for Plato, art deals with illusions, not truths, and can mislead people about the nature of reality. Fine. So, since this art is not the reality, it only deals with illusions. Why illusion? Because this art is the representation of the image of the shadow in the sense of how we represent the world. But that world again is an imitation of the ideal, the forms, and hence it is just an imitation, it is just an illusion that we are creating in art. So, if a painter is painting a tree by looking at an actual tree in the world, but that actual tree is also an imitation of the form of the tree, which is the ultimate. So, in that sense, Plato is criticizing it by saying that art deals with illusions, it does not deal with truth, and therefore it can mislead people about the nature of reality. So, Plato believed that it is the imitative style which is prevalent in the art, and both the artist as well as the observer make imitation the goal of art. In doing so, Plato believed that art, instead of taking mind to the essence of reality, rather takes it away to the world of illusion. Fine. So, he is trying to say that both the painter and the observer, their main goal is to imitate the world. So, if I am trying to draw a tree or mountains, what I am really trying to do is I am really trying to capture what's there in the world. So, I am trying to imitate that. And generally speaking, the well I imitate, the more valuable it becomes. But for Plato, he believes that this kind of art, instead of taking mind to the essence of the reality, it is rather taking us away to the world of illusions, because this world in which we are, it is of the world of illusion. The actual world or the reality is the world of forms. So, Plato was deeply concerned with the ethical and the psychological effects of art on the individual and the society, and he believed that art, particularly drama and poetry, it could stir up irrational emotions and desires, leading people away from rational thought and the pursuit of virtue. In Republic, Plato famously argues for censorship in poetry and stories in the ideal state, fearing that the tales of gods and heroes behaving immorally, that could corrupt the morals of citizens and especially of impersonable youths. So, since drama and poetry could stir these irrational emotions and desires of the people from their rational thoughts, from their actual pursuit of virtue. In the Republic, Plato, he argues that there needs to be a censorship in poetry and also in the stories in the ideal states, because the tales, the stories that are there in these dramas, in these poetries, they are trying to showcase that how heroes and gods, they have they are acting immorally or have some immoral characteristic, and that could corrupt the morals of the citizens because they are getting impacted from what they are seeing, what they are reading. And in this way, the art can corrupt the youths by giving them a wrong message or immoral principles that they are adhering from these work of art. So, he had a strong objection to poetry on moral grounds, as a poet was possessed by muse, madness, and composed his lines in the fit of this madness and an emotionally imbalanced state of mind. Therefore, a poet can never be expected to talk sense. So, Plato's skeptical views on art have had a lasting impact on the philosophical discussions on aesthetics, influencing debates on the value and the function of art in the society. Because the manner in which he is trying to discuss the way poets used to write poems in that time, and in writing those poems, they were considered to be in absolute madness, and they are composing those lines in the fit of those madness and an emotionally imbalanced state of mind that they are writing these poems. And since they are writing in that state of mind, what message are they going to give to the youth, or what content are they going to provide to the audience, was found to be morally problematic as for Plato. So, he found that art have a long lasting impact on the individuals, or you can say how they are getting wrong messages from these dramas, from these poems, and which can actually alter the manner in which the youth and the society thinks and how they function, because they would be drawn by those uh, emotional imbalanced state of mind, or through the immoral messages that have been given to them, if through some novels or some dramas, or also in the poems that they are going through. So, therefore, it becomes very essential to talk about and to bring in this Plato's views on art if we are having a philosophical discussion on aesthetics, because the manner in which he discusses this, the influence that we have on the youth, on the society, is very essential for us to discuss the role or the relationship between art and morality. Because if we are talking about art to be influencing the people, then what content are we actually providing the people on to which they are looking forward to? And there Plato comes in by saying that art, since it is an imitation of the imitation, the very aspect of art in itself is a world of illusion, and it is not showing something which is true and which is real, because what is real? Real is the world of forms. But since art is just an imitation of the imitation, and that imitation is the actual world that we are in, which in itself is an imitation of the world of forms, therefore art becomes a world of illusion rather than of truthfulness. So, his concerns with art's ethical impact and its relationship to truth has echoed through centuries, shaping subsequent theories of art and aesthetics. So, despite his criticism, Plato's work also laid a groundwork for recognizing art's profound influence on human life and its potential to contribute to the moral and spiritual, you can say, development of individuals and the society. Because the way a person is getting influenced from what he is seeing, what he is observing in the work of art has a very important role to play in his or her moral and the spiritual development, because we do what we see or what we hear. So, if something which is ethically problematic, if that is being shown in the work of art, it can definitely alter persons or the individual's moral and spiritual development, because a person is going to think and act and behave in the manner that they are seeing, observing in the work of art. So, therefore, it is very necessary to talk about Plato's work when we are talking about the relationship between art and morality. Let us now talk about art for art's sake. Some argues that for the intrinsic value of art, independent of any moral or social, political or utilitarian function, this perspective holds that the primary value of art lies in its beauty, for its ability to express the artist's creativity and imagination rather than serving any external social, political or moral purpose. So, it should only be for the art sake. Due to the paucity of time, we might have to end our lecture here, but we will definitely discuss what are the various other perspectives on to this debate, and also what is the role of censorship, whether that should be allowed in the work of art or not. So, that we will discuss in the next lecture. For now, I take a leave. Thank you all for staying with us.